So here we go. So episode 4, week 5 of the Joryhill podcast, talking about the simulation theory. Today we're only talking about one thing. It's one question. It'll be our discussion question on Wednesday, the 10th, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So our question, and I will read it exactly how it is off of the discussion questions. Is it immoral to simulate a human?
That's a tough one.
And see, it's very tough. I've been kind of thinking about it in like the back of my head to try to have something to talk about. I feel like it boils down to a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different reasons that it could be immoral, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah,
Like-
let's hear them.
So it's the idea of like us being able to process and put out a fully like functioning human being, no different than you and I in a like The Sims or whatever it is. Bad example, but like having a fully functioning human with a brain and they feel the same thing. If we're able to have complete control over that person's life, should we even be able to should we be allowed to have that power?
God, I honestly don't know. I really, because that's tricky. Because like, yeah, they're not technically alive the same way that we are, or that we imagine ourselves to be, or that we think we are, or whatever. But I don't know.
But we have programmed them to be exact. And like the hypothetical is that they are exactly like humans, except they're just on a digital screen.
Okay.
But us being able to have such control over and like, I suppose, play God over a life.
I don't know. I think
if it's immoral,
it would come down to like how like if they're really, I mean, I guess yeah, they are sentient, huh?
Their life. Created life.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're just looking at it that way, I don't think it would be right in that situation, but God no, yeah, like I'm honestly stumped on this. Like I don't have an answer. I don't know, cuz I'm trying to work it out in my head and I can kind of see both sides of that.
I'm trying to see both sides, yeah, like I guess what would an argument against it could be like, well, it's just a line of code. All it is it's just a game.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I guess then that kind of ties back into our like whole big question of like, well, couldn't you say the same about us? So like, imagine
if we were living in a simulation.
Literally, yeah, imagine if we are that simulation, and maybe not all of us, but just like one of us, or any whether it be all of us or one of us or however many, like I don't know, from like an outside perspective, I don't, to just take control of, like, imagine it's just like your aunt or something. Like your aunt just randomly gets taken over by some, like, whoever is running the simulation.
Valve and Gabe Newell is behind a computer desk.
Jeff Bezos.
And they're like
his perfectly bald head,
playing God over, you know, like billions of simulations. It's like, if this is, I mean, it's relating to our topic of discussion, and I feel like this discussion question moved more towards like what we would consider life to be. If you perfectly replicated a human brain and a human being to the point where it's not even an AI anymore.
Then it's like, yeah, it's not naturally made, but if it's like down to the last detail, exactly like any of the rest of us.
If we found a way to engineer life in a computer engine. And so I'm thinking, like, what would be the line between, it's the sentient part that's got me stuck.
Because as soon as you add that in, it's kind of tough to like just objectify it or say like, oh, it's just a line of code. Because at least to me, then I immediately think like, I mean, technically, I could be the person we're talking about, or you could be the person we're talking about. That's just getting controlled by somebody, right?
Oh, that gives me a weird feeling.
Yeah, right?
Chills.
That's where it gets tricky for me, though, is like, I don't know, once you just think of like what exactly it means to just be like a sentient being in any, like, regardless of whether it's a person or a robot or whatever else, that's when it gets tricky for me.
The first thing that comes to my mind is like, weirdly enough, like, I don't know if it makes as much sense when I say it out loud, but Horton Hears a Who.
Oh, kinda, yeah. Yeah,
like,
I see what you mean.
I might be thinking, but like, you would never know if it was actually something that was living or not, because we don't even know what that means yet. We hardly have a definition for life, and so as soon as you start bringing in what we can create, it gets, oh, the iceberg goes so deep. And we have no idea.
Yeah, it definitely
we don't have that kind
does.
of information. Another thing that I think about is like those people, those lines of code, you know, them having like feelings, and I don't remember what the word was from that one video that we watched. It's really descriptive. The one about liminal spaces, where it was like the awareness that people around you have their own complex and individual lives.
Yeah, everyone's living their own movie.
Everyone's living their own movie.
Sonder.
And so, Sonder, there we go. Cool. Yeah, so like the thought of...
It sounds appropriate. You know what I mean?
Yes, it sounds very... And those are all like made up words. Props to whoever made that like dictionary of those like familiarity, nostalgia words. But basically what I'm thinking of is like those...
Recording cut out, but we're back.
I was talking about people living their own individual lives, and it starts to break it down. Like if you were able to get a glimpse or like a status report on everything that this person's done, and it looks just like you're any other person, they've established a civilization or whatever, and it just seems so unnerving to think that we could be just picking and choosing what happens on that. The absolute power of I'm stuck on the control part on playing God.
Mm-hmm. I think
it's go ahead.
From that angle, yeah, I think anyone who would like actively control and just like mess with things, I think if that's what you were doing.
Well, right, and it's not that everybody would do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that goes for a lot of, I feel like a lot of like moral discussions that we've kind of been going over. It's like, well, not everybody would do the more extreme, but it's the capability of being able to do so in that situation.
Yeah. I think that's the kind of big difference is like, or the thing that makes it at least tough to say, like, because if anyone had that power, just kind of that like inconsequential, you can do whatever you want, then I don't know, would most people mess with it? Or would most people just watch?
I mean, like,
or like just kind of ignore it, or what?
Think about it as like just the biggest Gmod save that you could think of. The biggest sandbox game that you could ever play, where you can say that anything can happen. I mean, like, even though it is borderline immoral, which is what we're discussing right now, wouldn't you kind of play around with it? If you have anything just at your disposal, like, most people wouldn't even think that, like, oh, these are real people.
Correct.
Because we play video games every day.
Mm-hmm.
You and I play Counter-Strike, and we shoot hundreds of virtual people on video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it got to a point of that extent reality, like, I feel like it would almost have to be restricted.
Yeah.
So that people didn't take abuse of that. It's like these are test subjects almost.
Mm-hmm.
This is sensitive.
I think the difference with video game characters though, specifically, is like, for me at least, I don't know, when I'm playing like a multiplayer game and I kill someone, it's like, yeah, I'm just shooting a person in a simulation, like totally inconsequentially, but I don't know, I know it's not like it itself is not a sentient person. There's another real person on the other side of it, and they're not getting hurt.
So what about, like, I guess, yeah, maybe video games was a little bit of a stretch for an example. It was like the closest thing that I could.
Yeah.
It's more.
I get what you're getting at, though.
Yeah, like CPUs.
Okay,
like when some people get
go.
Like, and you even see examples of it in like story video games where people like get emotional over like what's coming to my mind right now is like the Walking Dead Telltale game.
Yeah.
Where people would get like super hurt over like certain characters dying, or
The Last of Us Part 2.
Yes.
People were really, really upset that one of the main characters from the first game, Joel, dies in the first like 30 minutes of the second game.
Spoiler on the podcast.
It's been out for so long.
It's been out, yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I don't actually remember when it came out.
The script leaked before the game even was announced.
Nice.
But no, yeah.
But
I get what you mean.
We value fictional character. I mean, we also value fictional characters in everything.
Mm-hmm.
like TV shows. But I think that we all also know, like you were saying, that they're not actually real. It's just someone's done a really good job at creating an art that makes us feel a certain way.
But I mean,
in all honesty, yeah, like
from that way, then you could say, maybe people would be a little more like empathetic, because we do get emotionally attached to
absolutely
like characters that we know are fictional and stuff like that, you know. And that's why it's tricky, is because I don't know, both sides of that kind of come even, like, there's not a stronger argument, at least that I can think of yet, for either side.
And so bringing into what you were just talking about, how we would be empathetic with fictional characters, then you bring in the factor that there's the humanity in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
If people were to treat like fictional characters that they would interact with, in a video game, knowing that they were a human,
Mm-hmm.
almost like as if there was like widespread information, like just to straight up lie to people, these are real people. Or maybe it isn't a lie. I don't know. We haven't actually figured out that at all. This is just all hypothetical. Like these are living creatures just like you. Don't interact with it. Don't mess with it.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that things like that happen in an implied simulation, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, it feels like some things are pretty scripted. 2020. That was a movie. That was literally, it's just back to back to back to back to back, like across the world. And
they said the 3-peat wasn't enough.
Right. And so, like, I don't think that it would be moral to simulate a human being. I don't think that it's right that we should have such a control over exact replicas of ourselves. I think we should just leave it at us and then destroy ourselves once we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Just take the easy option.
I agree, but I don't know. That's why this is such a tough question for me, is because I can see the other side of it just as clearly as I can see like my own personal side of it.
True.
And I can understand why someone would like say or think either one.
Oh yeah.
But also, that's why I think it's going to be a good discussion question.
Yeah. See, me personally, I think that's just what I think. I'm thinking about the other side too, now that you're mentioning it. They are. So there's my side for the podcast, and then we'll have everyone else's side.
Mm-hmm.
Or
I would, yeah.
And then
I would say I personally agree with you that it's not right, but I do understand why someone would believe otherwise, and I think you have a pretty strong argument for both.
Oh,
and
this is gonna go so well.
Yeah, for that reason, I'm excited for the debate.
Ooh. That's about it. Good stuff.
That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Excited to hear everyone's thoughts. If anyone is listening to this for some odd reason, but regardless, I'm legitimately excited to hear what anyone has to say about this. If anyone does, maybe no one will speak, and it'll suck, but I guess we'll just have to see.
It'll be a Wednesday. It's not a Monday, so it's might get a little
Fair
bit
enough,
more
yeah.
action. I'd make everyone coffee if I could.
Okay, that's it.
Yep.